Class warfare is a problem that doesn't get talked about enough. And by class warfare, I mean economic class warfare. It also might be the real enemy of civility and human decency. It's something wealthy and politically powerful people fear more than nuclear war or a global pandemic. What the heck am I talking about? Well, as is typically pointed out, this country has a system that rewards wealth. It thus makes sense that the wealthy and politically powerful would want to protect their interests using said wealth. It does have a paralyzing effect on the middle and lower classes, and that's easy to ignore given the mass media's focus on celebrities and universal principles. It's easy to feel invisible if you're not rich, you see. The strength of the middle and lower classes is in large numbers, and the strength of the upper class is in manipulation of the aggregate, also known as the rest of us. They need us bickering with each other so that they can operate without oversight. Regulations and oversight make it difficult to do terrible things to people that don't deserve it, but hold a key to wealth creation. Don't forget, just as an aside, that Martin Luther King Jr. was classified as an enemy of the state and was monitored by the FBI. And class warfare does explain why a middle class reverend would be the target of a federal government. Not to throw out conspiracies, the Martin Luther King Jr. knowledge is common knowledge. You know what? Just to pivot, a widely publicized study in 2010 by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, both winners of the Nobel Prize in Economics, concluded that happiness only increases with income up to 75,000 American dollars per year. Adjusted for inflation to the modern day, that is a little over 108,000. After that, they claimed, additional income doesn't impact overall happiness. So isn't it weird that there's a level of income, at least in US dollars, that's optimal for happiness, a quote unquote Goldilocks zone that maximizes happiness, and the number is barely over six figures? I mean, it's kind of interesting that, according to verifiable data, that making six figures makes you less happy. I wonder why wealthy people wouldn't want you to know that. Well, my speculation is because it guards their way of life and it maintains the status quo that made them wealthy. If you think about it, if the status quo made you wealthy and politically powerful, why would you want to change it? I know that question sounds rhetorical, but there's an answer. It's so those kind of opportunities can be given to more people and our culture can thrive, not just some of us. While it might make sense to figuratively fence off the upper class, that barrier's a restriction on most of us, and it negatively affects the culture. Social mobility is good for society, but greedy people don't want that. And there does seem to be a psychological dynamic that changes when you get rich. Although I would, again, purely through speculation, chalk that up to personal priorities changing once a certain level of wealth is achieved. But you know what, deep down, I gotta be honest, and I will be honest with you. I feel like if you have a net worth of $1 billion, the only respectable thing to do is to give away 90% of it and help the rest of the world, and then live off of, $100 million for the rest of your life better than most royalty in history. I honestly think that would be a socially acceptable answer to the rift between labor and administration or management. If you're in the lower or middle class, class warfare looks like union busting. It looks like wage theft, which is when a company doesn't pay you what they truly owe you. Pretty much anything that looks like a sacrifice on your part to appease corporate interests, which, looks backwards, and it's fully understandable why class warfare would be a thing. But, if you're in the upper class, the top 1% of income earners, then I guess class warfare looks. Actually, you know what? If you're that wealthy, give us some of your money. Like I suggested, help out the environment and the people that made you wealthy. Pay your fair share in taxes. We need your money. It's not a secret. People can't really thrive unless they have access to resources, and you have access to a lot of them. And it would be great for the rest of us if you shared. I know it may not be in those people's best interests, but it's in the best interests of them if you apply it as a principle that applies to all of us. It's really that simple. If you got a lot, give a little bit back so that other people can have a lot too. Look, I could go on for this all day, but all I know about class warfare is that fighting income inequality, which is essential to it, it seems like that's fighting the real enemy. We differ in many ways, race or religion or political stance. But one thing that links us all is that we all need resources to live. And communal efforts make it so that we can collectively not only survive, but thrive. I've heard it stated that good art, or actually when you think about it, for that matter, anything good, it can come from anywhere. And in my opinion, the best way to ensure that the whole of society benefits from that principle is to solve economic inequality. There shouldn't be such a gigantic gap between those of us that make society run and those people that profit off it obscenely. We should make sure that we're all doing well so that we can actually make society better. And I guess what I'm saying ultimately is that class warfare, that might be the only fight worth having.